A very good morning to every one of you present here. It's our absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the national level. So a very good morning to every one of you present here. It's our absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the national level 5-day faculty development program on navigating the future with cutting-edge technology through research and innovation. In the next 5 days from today, we will delve into in-depth exploration of this topic. Now, I invite Dr. M Selvakumar, sir, HOD and Assistant Professor of Commerce, to introduce his chief guest. Welcome, sir.
Good morning to one and all present here. I'm really very happy to introduce our chief guest, Dr. M Selvakumar, sir, Associate Professor and Head PG in the Research Department of Commerce, Ayya, Nadar, Janaki, Ammal College. Sir completed BCom degree in SRNM College, Satur, and MCom degree completed in SRNM College, MBA, PhD degree completed, and he is published more than 9 books, and he published articles and journals in 210 articles, paper presentation in various conference and seminar, totally 116 papers, guest lectures delivered in 13, and acted as a resource person in various conference and workshops, 54, seminar and workshop attended by 17, and conferences, seminars, workshop organized by 17. And then he guided totally 21 PhD scholars, now presently ongoing 6 candidates. He guided totally 30 MPhil project students and guided 23 MCom students projects. He got 2 major research projects, 2 minor research projects, minor own research project and a major research project from the UGC and the ICSSR conference. Presently, he is in the head of the Department of PG and Research Department of Commerce from 2018 onwards. He acted as various members in Awards Committee, Semester Review Cell, and the Treasurer Staff Club, Secretary Staff Club of Anja College. He acted as various Board of Studies member in various colleges and universities. He got various awards. He got various awards from the various institutions. He published his Scopus Index journal, totally 8. Paper published in UGC CAR listed, UGC CAR approved journal, totally 44. List of other journals published in various journals, totally 171. I'm very happy to introduce our resource person. He is the right person to in the research field, especially in the preparing of the questionnaire. Thank you, sir. I am very happy to introduce you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Before we start the first session, let me briefly explain the format of the program and some ground rules for your convenience and participation. Each session will last for 1 hour with a 5-minute break after each session, followed by a question and answer and assessment. If you have any questions for the speakers, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to reach you. Otherwise, text your queries in the chat box and the resource person will respond it to your academy. Let us invite our chief guest on the platform and start the event. The topic is construction of instrument for data collection. Welcome, sir.
Respected principal of this college, my dear friend Selvakumar, and the other organizing committee members of this 5-day faculty development program, and other resource persons for these 5 days, and participants from these institutions and from institutions from the state of Tamil Nadu and other states. Happy morning to all of you. This is my immense pleasure to be here as a resource person for the first session of this 5-day faculty development program. As you all know how the research is important, as a faculty of the social science or the pure sciences, you know about the importance of the research. Okay. As we are all aware that the teaching and research are the 2 eyes of every teacher working in India. In commercial management, we split our area as a finance, human resource management, marketing, assistance, or customer relation management, or banking, like that. Okay. The first step, you just go through the review of literatures in all areas, and you just find the broad area for your research, and you just make a discussion with your mentor or the guide on your broad area, and again you go for the review of literatures in the particular area of your research. Here, getting a review is very important. Okay, and making a detailed analysis of the review is very important for proving your research title or research problem. That is very important. If you find the right problem that make you as a completion of your research as a 50%. Okay, therefore, give considerations for the review of literatures and find the area for your research and the problem for your research. Then after finding the research problem, okay, then you again go for the review of literature, particularly for your research title. Here the exhaustive review should be collected, then only you can understand, okay, what research has already carried out in the particular area and what research we should go further in the particular area. Okay. Then after making a detailed review, okay, then here you just go for the data collections. This gives the input for your research. Okay. Therefore, the data collection is a major role, is a major part in the research of the social sciences. Okay. Usually here we have the two instruments used for the data collections. Okay, they are the questionnaire and the entry schedule. Okay, here the questionnaire is a written set of the questions for gathering data from the respondent. And the entry schedule is a structured list of questions used by an interviewer to guide the interview process. As a researcher in the social science field, we must use any one of these instruments for our data collection to get the data in a systematic manner and in a full-fledged manner. Okay. Now we are going to discuss in detail. Questionnaire is a collection of questions to be answered by the respondents independently. Here we prepared the questionnaire, okay, and send it the same to the respondent, to the identified respondent, and ask the respondent to fill the questions, to fill the questionnaire, and to give the right answer, to give their responses, and request the respondent to send the same to the researcher. Therefore, here the questionnaire is a collection of the questions filled by the respondent himself independently. Okay. Whereas the entry schedule, this is a schedule for the interviewer, not for the respondent. The questionnaire is for the respondent. He independently fill everything. But in case of the entry schedule, this is not for the respondent. This is for the researcher or the interviewer or the persons who are going to collect the data for the respondent. Because here we need the uniform data, the uniform responses from all the respondents. To get the uniform response, to get the uniform data. Here we need some structured questionnaire or interview setting. Okay, therefore, you just know that the questionnaire is for the respondent and interview setting is for the interviewer. Okay, he used that settle or questionnaire to get the response from the respondents. Here you just see that yes. The difference between the questionnaire and the interview settle. Okay, here the questionnaire is a written format and self-administered by the respondent. Here they can't get the clarifications from the researcher because the researcher in the one place and the respondent in the another place. There is no face-to-face interactions between them for collecting the data. Okay, and that situations, here we use the questionnaire. Okay, therefore the questionnaire should be self-explained everything because the respondents are not in the position to get the clarifications from the interviewer. Therefore, the questionnaire is self-administered, okay, and self-explanatory, everything. Therefore, while preparing the questionnaire, we should concentrate each and every point, each and every question. That should be self-explained, okay, that should be self-administered. And whereas in interview settle, this is a guided face-to-face or virtual. This is a settle kept by interviewer. The settle kept by the interviewer. This is a guide to the interviewer, okay, to ask the questions to the respondents. Whereas the role of the respondent is minimum, the role of the interviewer is more. Here the interviewer has a face-to-face interactions, physically or virtually, okay, and he is ready to give explanations, whatever the clarifications raised by the respondents. Therefore, the interviewer prepare the settle, the order of the questions, okay, to ask the respondents. And the flexibility in the questionnaire is a fixed one. Here everything is predetermined. Okay, we design the questionnaire with some set of questions, okay, and make the printout or in a digital form and send the same to the respondents through post or by systems. Okay, here everything is fixed, there is no flexibility. The respondents are compelled indirectly to answer whatever the questions asked in the questionnaire. Therefore, here there is no flexibility. But in case of the interview settle, this is somewhat flexible. Here, the interviewer decides the tone of the questions on the basis of the reaction of the respondents. Okay, therefore, here the interview schedule is somewhat flexible on the basis of the reaction of the respondents, and there is a reaction of the interview. And the depth of the responses, here in questionnaire, the response level is somewhat limited because here the respondents independently filled the question asked in the questionnaire. Okay, there is no directions given to the respondents. Okay, the direction is only on the printed form. Okay, therefore the respondents somewhat difficult. Okay, and they give the responses, okay, at their own. Okay, if the respondents give the data at their own, they always they are limited some extent. But in case of the interview schedule, here the interviewer is there. The interviewer asking the questions to the respondents, okay, and getting the responses, okay, whatever may be, okay. They change the tone, they change the language, okay. Accordingly, they are always trying to get the response, okay, at their satisfied level from the respondents. Therefore, here can explore in-depth responses. That is very important. And anonymity, here in the questionnaire, the anonymity is high because the respondents always give the responses on their own mind, on their own understanding. Here we can't expect the same understanding what we have on the particular question, the same from the respondents. Therefore, here the responses from the respondents are different by respondent to respondent in the questionnaire. But in case of the interview schedule, here the interviewer are the same. He recorded the responses which was collected from the respondent. Therefore, here the anonymity is very low because here the interviewer changed their attitude, changed their voice and language. Depends on the attitude of the respondents, and at maximum they are getting the right response from the respondents. This is the difference between the questionnaire or the interview schedule and what instrument we should use for our research. That is very important. Here while selecting the instrument, whether we are go for questionnaire or go for interview schedule, we should consider some basic points. That is very important. Before making a data collection, before go for the data collection, we should decide whether we use the questionnaire or interview schedule. Next one. Here you just see that some basic considerations you should see. For our research, we need the questionnaire or the interview schedule. Here you just see that for questionnaire, the respondent should be educated because here you are sending the questionnaire in written form, either maybe Tamil or English. Whatever may be, he should educate. If the respondents know the Tamil, you should send the questionnaire in the medium of the Tamil or English or the language of the respondent. That is very important. Therefore, if you apply or used the questionnaire, all of your respondents should be educated. If any part of your respondents are uneducated, you don't go for the questionnaire. You just go for the interview schedule. For uneducated respondents or illiterate respondents, definitely you should go for the interview schedule and you make a face-to-face interactions and get the responses from the respondents through the interview schedule. That is very important. Then having sufficient knowledge on the subject matter. For the questionnaire, the questions should be filled by the respondents himself without any directions or clarifications from the researcher or from the researcher or the data collector. You understand? Therefore, to fill the questions, to give the answer to the questions in the questionnaire, the respondents should have some basic understanding on the subject of your research. That is very important. For example, you are going to collect. There is the online banking details. Even the educated are not aware about the online banking details. And that situations here you are not go for the questionnaire. Wherever the respondents are not having some basic knowledge on the subject of your research. For example, you are going to analyze the AI application in banking, artificial intelligence in banking. There are so many fields. The AI is applied now. the financial field are more using the AI for their services to the customers. Okay, even the educator, we are not aware about the applicable areas in the banking sector. Therefore, on that situations, here even the educated respondents need some clarifications on the questions. They are not having the fundamental knowledge on the AI applications. Okay, therefore, on that situations, you should go for the interview schedule and making a scheduled interview with the respondents and getting the responses from the respondents. Okay, therefore, here for interview schedule, the not enough knowledge to the respondents. The minimum knowledge is enough because here the interviewer is there. They are giving explanations. Okay, and the questionnaire, in the questionnaire, the respondent is able to understand the question. That is very important. Or otherwise, they skip the questions. They simply skip the questions and send the same without giving an answer to the questions. Therefore, every question should be clear. Okay, every question should be clear and understandable to the respondents. Okay, but here that understanding is not necessary. And the questionnaire is self-explanatory. Here may be explained by the interviewer. And wide geographical area. If your area of research, if you are going to study the behavior of the particular customers or the group of people in Tamil Nadu or in South India, and that situations here you are not meet your respondents face to face. Okay, the wide geographical area is not covered by the interview method. On that situation, you just go for there is a question. Okay, and there is a here the limited geographical area and the confidence on the responses of the respondent. Okay, the confidence on the responses of the respondent. Here, if you have a confidence whether all of your respondents are give the right responses to your questions, then you go for the questionnaire. Okay, as a researcher, you just make questions, okay, on the confidence of the respondents on giving the data for your data. Okay, if you have a confidence on the knowledge, on the understanding, on the ability of the respondents, then you just go with questionnaire. Here, that is at the interview schedule. Here we can get the responses directly, and we record the responses. We record the responses. We observe the responses of the feelings of the facial reactions of the respondent directly. Okay, by face to face, physically or virtually. On that situations, we can get a more accurate and absolute data from the respondent and suitable for quantitative data. The questionnaire is mostly suitable for quantitative data. The data in numbers. If your data is in the form of the qualitative, definitely you should go with the interview setting or the direct observations method. Are you understand? Okay. Therefore, the interview setting is for quantitative as well as the qualitative data. For the corrections of qualitative and quantitative data, you can apply the interview setting. Okay. While seeing all these things and decide what instruments you need for your research. As a researcher, you decide everything in your research with the consultation of your mentor or the guide. You are the sole responsible person for each and everything in your research. Therefore, you decide whether we need a questionnaire or interview setting. Questionnaire and interview setting. Both are having some set of questions. But the questionnaire is for the respondents. He filled that questions and give the answer independently without getting clarification from the researcher. Whereas the interview schedule is for the researcher or the interviewer. Here the interviewer or the researcher needs some guide to ask the questions. You just imagine that without the interview schedule, if you make arrangement for the interview, okay, for the interview, here the interviewer or researcher, the questions not in a structured form. Not in a structured form, because here you should consolidate the data collected from all the respondents. For the making the consolidation, your data should be in a structured form, in a ordered method. Okay. Say example, if you ask the first question, what is your name? That should be asked to all the respondents. If you ask the question in a particular tone, you should ask the questions in the same tone to all the respondents. Then only you can get the uniform responses from the respondents. Therefore, without the instruments, here you can't collect the data. Therefore, you just decide whether you go with the questionnaire for your data collections or the interview schedule for your data collections. The quality instrument decides the quality of the input. The quality of the input decides the quality of your output. That is the outcome of the research, suggestions, findings, suggestions, and the conclusions of your research. Therefore, here the designing of the instrument decides your quality of accuracy of your research. That is why, as a researcher, we usually ask the researcher to take more time, more concentration on the questionnaire or individual preparations. Okay. Now the research scholars, they are preparing the question or the questionnaire or the interview schedule at their own and go to the data collection and collected everything. Okay. And after making a data collection, they face a serious issues. Therefore, the scientific methodology should be adopted while designing the questionnaire or the interview schedule. Okay, I hope now you are understand how to select the interview schedule, whether questionnaire or the interview schedule for our research. Okay. And designing the questionnaire or interview schedule. Okay, as I rightly said, both are the same. Both have some set of questions. That's all. The questionnaire is for the respondents, interview schedule is for the interviewer. That's all. But both have some set of questions. Okay, that question should be full-fledged in order. Okay, and give a clear understanding to the persons who use it. That is very important. Therefore, here we should arrange some set of questions. Some set of questions for the instruments. How we identify, how we arrange that question is very important. That question is very important. Yes. Here well designed. Yes. This is the previous one. The well designed questionnaire. Hereafter, the questionnaire, wherever I use the word questionnaire, also applicable for the interview schedule. Okay. Then the well-designed questionnaire is very important. As I rightly said, ensure accuracy and reliability of the data. Ensure accuracy and reliability of the data. If your questionnaire is defective, definitely your data will be defective. You are missing something in the questionnaire, you are also missing in the data collections. You are unnecessarily including something and you are also unnecessarily collected the same thing, which are totally irrelevant to your research. That's waste of your time and money. Okay, therefore, your questionnaire or interview should be precise and also ensure there is the absoluteness. That is very important. Okay, it should not be more or less.
It's optimum. Okay. Then reduces the response biasness. As far as the social science are concerned, the biasness is a great threat to us. Okay. As much as we should reduce our biasness, Okay. Every individual have their own concepts and pre-conclusions. Okay. Before giving the answer to the first, particular questions, okay, here we have some pre-conclusion. Okay. Therefore, you should reduce the pre-conclusion of the respondents, interviewer. Okay. You should frame the questions carefully. Usually, the leader should make the questions on the basis of what he expects the answer. Can you understand? Okay. Therefore, that type of question should be avoided. Every question should be neutral. And give a 100% chance to the respondents to answer. That is very important. Cleverly, we avoid some responses. That is the coming slides are explaining the various types of the responses, open-ended, closed-ended, like that. In closed-ended questions, we give a responses. Say, example, are you there is a educated? Here is no. Okay. What is your qualifications? Okay. For that, here we can give 4 or 5 responses. In some situations, there is the interviewer or the researcher, okay, giving some limited responses. Through that limited responses, they compel to the respondent to answer any one of these. Okay. Therefore, you should avoid such type of the responses and give the exhaustive responses, the type of the responses to the respondent to give a responses on their own. Okay. Therefore, the enhances your experiences, user experiences for the respondents. Okay, user, that is what I am saying. The 100%, the freeness should be given to the respondent to answer the particular question. Okay. Open-ended questions give a full freedom, but the responses are not uniform. Every responses give the responses on their own. You may not conclude. You may not, there is a consolidate everything. Okay. Therefore, to get a systematic responses, here you mostly use the closed-ended questions. Okay. Here we ask the questions with the possible responses. Okay. The respondents should select any one of the possible responses given by the researchers. While giving the responses, possible responses, we should include everything, all possible responses. That is very important. That makes the user enhance the experiences. That is very important. The next one is that is a constructing a questionnaire. Usually here we have some steps in constructing the questionnaire. First one is defining the objectives. This is not objective of your research. This is objective of your data collection. For every activity here we have some objective. Okay. Identify what you want to achieve. Through this data collection, what data you should collect. That is very important. As a researcher, you should clear about what data you need for your research. That is very important. Okay, usually, as a researcher, we commit the mistake in that part. Okay. In the research process, the first process is identifying the problem, and second one is review of literatures, and third one is the sampling technique, or go with the populations or the sample. If you made the research with the sample and you just identify the sampling technique and the sample size, after deciding all these things, You just prepare the questionnaire or interview and then you can go for data collection. This is not right. This is not right. Before constructing the questionnaire or interview, you just view about the statistical applications. That is very important. What statistics you are going to use for your research, that should be decided well in advance, because every statistics requires some unique form of data. Do you understand? Every statistics requires some unique form of data. That data should be important for applying a particular statistics. For example, if you are going to apply the factor analysis, definitely you need the data specifically in the particular form for applying the factor analysis. As a researcher, we usually see the applications of the statistics after collecting all the data from the respondents. Because theoretically, we thought like that. Okay, deciding the sample size and the sampling technique, we prepare the questionnaire on the basis of the objective, okay, and go for the data collections and collected everything. After making a collection work, and then we go for the statistics. Okay, if you do like that, okay, the statistics cannot be applied when your data is not in the particular form. Okay, therefore, you just decide what statistics you are going to apply for your research before constructing the interview schedule or the questionnaire. Okay, you are not familiar with the statistics, you just discuss with your mentor or guide or your fellow researcher or somebody else about the statistics. Okay, and what statistics are very important for your research, and just identify that statistics and then decide the responses of the data and the questions. That is very important. That is very important. Usually for the factor analysis and the most, there is a SEM and like that the part analysis or the models in your theoretical models for your research. We need the data in the 5-point scale. Therefore, you can decide. You can decide. Okay. The structure of the responses accordingly, what statistics you are going to apply. That is very important. Okay. Then link the questions to the research goals. That is very important. Okay. Usually, theoretically, you decide the objective of research is the very first, and every research activity carried out on the basis of your research goals. Likewise, the questionnaire and interview schedule also should be prepared, okay, to align with your research goals, because the data collected should be sufficient to achieve your research goals. That is very important. Anything that should not be omitted. Okay, once you collect the data, again you can't go for the data collection. Okay, this is a very tedious work. Therefore, you link the questions to your research objectives, to your research goals, and identify the target audience. That is very important. Okay, after deciding your problem, your sample, okay, you just identify the characteristics of your respondents and design the questions, okay, accordingly. Because here you are collecting the data from your audience, your respondents. your respondents. Therefore, you design the questions, okay, that should be tuned with your respondents. Whether they are educated or having able to answer the questions, they are having a fundamental knowledge on the subject area. Everything should be considered. Everything should be considered. Okay. After making a detailed considerations, and you can decide about the questions to be asked and the instruments you are going to use. That is very important. And understand who will complete the questionnaire. Understand who will complete the questionnaires. That's also very important. Okay. Who fill up, who give the respondent, who give the responses for your research. Okay. Say example, your respondent may be an individual or a firm. Your respondents may be an individual or a household or a firm or a company. Okay. There is a, say example, you are going to collect the data from the bank. The implementation of the HR practices in bank. Okay. Therefore, for which you are collecting the responses from the bank. The bank is an artificial person. Representing the bank, you are collecting the responses from the bank manager. Okay. Here, the researcher usually asks, there is the demographic variables of the bank manager. That is not necessary. Here, the manager representing the bank. Therefore, the personal details of the manager is not necessary. Therefore, asking the demographic variables, there is a age, gender, income, like that, is not necessary. Okay. As an individual, okay, you are going to study the behavior of the individual, the employees of the bank. You are collecting such data from the manager or clerk, like that. The manager representing the bank, there is the demographic or economic factors of the manager is not necessary. Therefore, here you should understand who complete the questionnaire, who give responses to you is very important. And understanding of the type of question is very useful to design your questionnaire. To design your questionnaire, there are there is two types of the responses. One is the open-ended questions and another one is the closed-ended questions. Okay. In the open-ended questions, here we ask the questions only. I am not giving a responses. There we give us some spaces and the respondents are free to write anything. Free to write anything. Okay. Say example, what is your income? What is your income and give a dash. He fill anything, 1 lakh, 1 lakh, 1,000, 1 lakh, 2,000, and 1 lakh, 10,000, and 1 lakh, 20,000 like that. And after that, we can consolidate everything, grouping everything. Okay. If you ask what is your income, up to 25,000, 25,000 to 50,000, 50,000 to 75,000, 75,000 to 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh. This is a closed end. Here you are giving actions. Therefore, here the respondent take any one of the actions given you. Here you limit the responses. You group the responses. You group the responses. Therefore, wherever you need the closed-ended questions, you need the open-ended question should be identified by you as a researcher. As a researcher. You can't use interchangeably. If you use interchangeably, there is the place where we need the closed end, but you apply the open end, you face a serious issues of the consolidation of the responses of the all respondents. All respondents. Therefore, you just find the questions and what should be the responses, whether this is the open end or the closed end. Usually, we ask the last question as a suggestions of the respondents. That should be open end. The respondents write on their own. The respondents write on their own. If you ask more questions in the open ended, the respondents simply skip the questions because they are not finding the time. Here, everybody have a limited time. Here, you are getting the respondents' time for your research. Okay, they are always fill up the questions with the short durations. For the PhD, we ask hundreds of questions. Okay, therefore, while designing the questionnaire or entry schedule, you just precise your questions. Don't ask the questions like that. Directly you ask the questions. Use the appropriate word. Understandable manner. Sequential, logical methods. That is very important. And here there is a closed end, it is easy to analyze. Say example, yes, no, multiple choice. Okay, say example, up to schooling or undergraduate, postgraduate. Okay, there is a professionals. Okay. And for every questions, here you should ask, last one is any other. Last one is any other. Okay, here you are knowingly or unknowingly miss something. If the respondents belong into that category, they can write. Okay. Then rating. There is a ranking or rating. There is a strongly agree, to strongly disagree, and ranking also. Okay, rank the factors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ranks. Okay, all these things are closed end. Usually for our research, we use the closed end questions. In the closed end questions, you just try to give all possible responses. All possible responses. Okay, that is very important. And the structure in the question should be clarity. Okay, use simple and clear language. Relevance. That is align the questions with the objectives. Don't ask unnecessary questions. You decide your objectives, applications of statistics, what you expect from your research. There is what outcome you expect from your research. Okay, and on the basis of all these things, you just ask the questions. You just ask the questions. Okay, therefore don't go for the maximum, and at the same time don't go for the minimum. You just identify the appropriate. That make your research easiest. And avoid biasness. Okay, there is a don't ask the leading questions. Don't ask the leading questions. Okay, and also loaded questions. Okay, you don't decide the responses in the question itself. We are usually asking, are you employed? Are you saying the truth all time? Okay. Knowingly or unknowingly, the respondent say yes. Okay. Therefore, sometimes we ask the questions with the expectation of the particular answer. That type of question should be avoided. Okay. That is what called as the leading questions and loaded questions. Okay. Sometimes we are there is a making a questions which confuses the respondents. Okay, which confuses the respondents whether this will be answer or that will be answer. Always ask direct questions. Always ask direct questions. And the sequence, grouping the questions under some common title, common topic, and move from general to specific. Okay, at the initial stage, you are asking some general questions and go with some specific or particular questions. Then, there is a response options. Okay, questions types, open-ended, closed-ended, and this is a response options. Okay, use appropriate scale, linked scale. Okay, there is a strongly agree to the strongly disagree, and sometimes you can ask a numerical scale. It may be 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, like that. Whatever the scale you used for your statistics, you can ask, and avoiding overlapping options. Okay, and ensure all possible outcomes or answers are covered. That is very important. And formatting, logical layout and flow, include clear instruction, use consistent font and spacing. This is a common one. You know everything. And this is very important. Before you go for the data collection, you just test your questionnaire or individual. Okay, with pre-testing. Pre-testing is nothing but you just collect the data by using your questionnaire with some small samples. Say example, your actual sample size is 500 or 400. You just go with 40 samples or 25 samples. Okay, you just circulate your questionnaire or individual with 25 respondents, covering all group of your sample. That is very important. Here we, as a researcher, we commit a common mistake. Okay, as a teacher, as a college teacher, okay, we have a close relationship with the college teachers. Therefore, unknowingly, I circulate the questionnaire with the teachers only. Can you understand? For the pre-testing, I identify 25 of my friends and give the same and ask the sample respondents of 25 my friends to fill the question and return back to me. Okay, most of us, our sample respondents, the small sample respondents are the teachers. If you are a woman, you are having the relationship or the touch with the women only. Therefore, if you are a student, all of your friends are students. Therefore, for the pre-testing, you just identify the 25 or 20 or the 40 respondents covering all group of your population. Say example, for 25, there is a 13 are women and 12 are men. Okay, and there is a educated is like that 15, uneducated is 12. Okay, you just identify the different groups and circulate your questionnaire. Okay, and get the answers from them, and you make analysis. What difficulties the respondents face? Are you getting full-fledged responses from the respondents? And go with the responses and the questions. If you find any difficulties, okay, and you just get back feedback from the respondents, and you just identify the omitted questions and include the same. You also identify the unwanted questions in your questionnaire or the interview schedule. You just remove it. Therefore, after adding and removing, okay, and you just find the appropriate the design of your questionnaires. Therefore, the pre-test and the pilot testing of your questionnaire is very important. Okay, after getting the feedback from the responses, you modify your questionnaire or individual, and again you go with sitting with your peer researchers. Okay, your fellow researchers. You just identify the experts in the particular field and hand over your questionnaire and get the feedback from them. Okay. After getting a feedback and modify on the basis of the feedback, then you can go for the data collection. That is very important. And you just find some the modern data collection tools. Nowadays, there is we are in the digitalized era. Okay, modern techniques are used. Okay, here we have more actions to collect the data. There is a digital tools, Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Microsoft Forms. There are the lot of tools through which you can collect the data from. Okay, data from the respondents. If you apply that digital tools, you just design your questionnaire in your schedule accordingly. That is very important. Okay. Yeah, everything should be predetermined. Everything should be predetermined. That is before designing your questionnaire. Okay, that is very important. And tips for the online survey designs. Okay, there is if you go for the digital survey tools, then your design should be mobile friendly. Nowadays, no one is there is a go with the systems and other thing. Now everything is in the mobile. Okay, therefore you can design your questionnaire or individual which is applicable to mobile. And use virtually and limit length. That is very important. Limit length. Okay, some students giving our scholars giving the questionnaire to us having 30 to 40 pages. Okay, no one finds time for you. They are just making a tick with a few seconds or few minutes only. Okay, therefore you just design your questionnaire with appropriate length. Maximum of 5 pages. Maximum of 5 pages. If you have a 20 or 30 pages, you can't get the right responses and the full-fledged responses. Okay. Then the common mistakes to avoid in designing the questionnaires. Then ambiguous questions. Okay. You just go again and again. You read everything. Okay. Give your fellow researchers and ask them to read. Okay. And if anything is ambiguous, if any questions needs some clarifications, you just make it easy, make it understanding, design the questions understanding. Okay. And leading or loaded questions, already I said, okay, you follow the neutral questions, don't loaded questions, the leading questions. Too many or too few questions, there is a common. Okay. Here, if you go for the modern statistical tool or the systems for the statistical tool, okay, say example, factor analysis or AMOS, okay, you just having a minimum of the 10 statements for the variable. Some people they are asking 5 statements or 3 statements. Okay, if you having a 3 or 5 statements for the particular factor, okay, that statements are not loaded in the statistics. Therefore, minimum of 10 to 15 statements is enough for the particular factor. Okay. Then too much of questions, say example 40, 50 statements. Okay, that creates unnecessary collinearity issues for your questions, for your factor. Therefore, too many and too few should be avoided. Cultural differences should be ignored. If you are collecting the data from the wide geographical area, you just avoid the cultural differences. For example, we are differ from the Carolians and there is a Canadians. We have some cultural differences. That the cultural differences also influence our behavior. That type of cultural differences leading our behavior should be avoided for the research. And there is a framing without considering the statistics. This is a common mistake. You just consider the statistics and frame your questionnaire or individual. And here we just hand over to someone else. Okay. Here, the data collection is the duty of the researcher. Okay. Here, usually we prepare the questionnaire or individual and hand over the same to some of our friends. Say example, I am a teacher, I am going to a minor research project. Okay, for that I prepare the questionnaire and I go to the second income. Okay, I need 500, there is a responses. Okay, and I just find 5 students and give it 50 each and ask them to collect. This is not a right method. If you do like that, that student or that friend, that fellow, there is a fellow researcher, they fill everything. Instead of collecting the real respondents, they fill everything and hand over the same to you. Okay, that is not a duty of someone else. This is a duty of you. Okay, it is a duty of you. You should collect the data from your respondents. Then only you can get the right data. Okay. Then don't hand over the data collection work to your friend and allow your character to influence. Don't allow your character to influence. The women collect more from women. The students collect more from students. Can you understand? This is a common issue. Okay, we faced from our resources scholars. After getting your data, after collecting your data, we prepared the frequency table. 80% are women, and 80% are postgraduate, and 75% are students. If your data shows like that, your research is not a true one. Therefore, you just identify your strata, your group, respondents group. In the population, the male or female are at most equal. Therefore, 50% of male and 50% of the female should be in your respondent. Okay. The exact 50% is not necessary, maybe 45 or 45, like that. Likewise, you just identified the population strata and decide your sample. Okay, and decide your samples. And the sampling technique is very important. Sampling technique is very important. If you compromise with the sampling technique, okay, you are also ready for compromising the accuracy of your data and the absoluteness of your data. Okay, therefore, you stick on with the scientific methodology of the sampling technique and go with that scientific method for your data collections. Inappropriate sample size and technique, that is very important. You just find the appropriate sample size. Okay. Everything should be scientifically decided. Okay. Of course, the 500 is enough. But here you justify why 500. Instead of taking 550 or 450, why you go with the 500? You should answer that questions in your Viva. Okay, therefore you decide the sample size, whatever may be, 500 or 300 or 200. You just find the scientific methodology. There are the formulas are there, the online methodologies are there. Okay. Or from the review, you just take the sample size. And the sampling technique decides your respondent. If you know the population size, you must go with the probability sampling technique. If you know the population, you must go with the probability sampling technique. If your population size is unknown, then you can go with there is a non-probability sampling like judgment sampling and convenience sampling. Usually the researcher will feel that the convenience sampling is a convenience for the researcher. It is not a convenience for the researcher, it is a convenience for your research. That is very important. You just find the method convenient for your research, not a convenient for the data collector or the researcher. That is very important. That is very important. Okay. This, I think, you just make this presentation. I think more discussion and think. The research is not transformed by lecture. Okay. Therefore, I expect some kind of the discussions from you. If you have any questions or the clarifications, whatever may be, not limited to this questionnaire design and interview center design. Pilot study?
Pilot studies. The question pilot study important.
For all questions, you should go with the pre-testing. Whatever may be the data collections here, you prepare questionnaire or intercedal. Everything should be tested. Then only you can get the feedback from the respondents and make the corrections. Okay.
then only you can get a full-fledged questions. Yes, here there is a pilot testing. Here I am mentioning pilot test. Pilot study is different from the pilot test. Pilot study is the miniature of your research. Whatever you are going to do for your research should be done with small size of the sample. Say example, if you do the review of literatures and data collection, sample, there is a statistical applications, finding the inference, giving citations. For 400 respondents, this is your original research. Every step of your original research should be carried out for your small size called 25. That is called as a pilot study. Okay. For social sciences, pilot study is somewhat difficult. Pure sciences, we can make a pilot study. But social sciences, we can make the pilot test or the pre-testing is enough. Okay. Everybody should test their questionnaire. That is very good. Yes, some questions are asked by respondents through online. Raj Bino is asking, will it be possible to do the research purely based on the secondary data? Yes, of course. As a researcher, you decide the type of the data. If your research needs only the secondary data, that is enough. Okay, for example, here I code my research area. There is a performance evaluation of the regional role bank in India, for which I collected the secondary data only. I collected data from the content progress of the banking in India. It's the publications of RBI, and I collect the annual reports of the regional rural bank. Okay, I won't collect the primary data. Therefore, you can do the research with the secondary data only. Which statistical tool is suitable for conducting such kind of the research using only the secondary data? There are so many statistics. For all statistics, you can use for both the secondary and the primary data. Okay. Nowadays, there is the factor analysis is also applied for the secondary data. I find one research they used. There is a factor analysis for the secondary data. The selection of the statistics is purely based on the requirements of your research. That should be decided by you and your mentor. Thank you, Guru. Then any more questions?
Good morning, sir. It was a nice lecture, sir. Actually, I'm from Maths department, and we actually don't do this collection of data, but I'm just interested in asking you. In statistics, we have two types of samples, actually, small samples and large samples. So I'm just interested to know, when do you choose for small samples, or when do you go for collecting large samples?
Usually the classifications of the sample, okay, based on the normality. The small sample does not have the normality. Okay, large samples have the normality. The normality means, I think, the data set should be in a bell shape. Yes. Every data should be in a bell shape. There is no too much of low, too much of high. The normal should be higher. The normal should be higher. In the application of statistics systems, by using the systems, all the systems they convert the data with normality. Therefore, whatever the sample size, whether this is less than 30, statistically the data less than 30 is called a small size, and 30 and above there is a large size. If you apply even the correlation, or there is the ANOVA is for the large samples. By using the SPSS or the Excel, or you can use there is a
and ANOVA for small sample also. There is no difference of the large sample and small sample for the SPSS and others.
And one more doubt from the previous slide, sir.
Please.
The framing without considering the statistics. Can you explain it again, sir? I didn't understand.
Yes, this is a mistake. The common mistake usually, that is we frame the questionnaire not considering the statistics.
Statistics exactly what you're meaning, sir.
Statistics tools, there is a what statistics you are going to apply to analyze your job. Say example, I am going to analyze the behavior of the customers. Okay. Here I am trying to group the behavior in some common ideas. For grouping, there is a factor analysis is an important tool. Okay. And that situation, here we should ask the questions with the responses which is suitable for the factor analysis.
Which means you will choose the statistics first.
Yes,
and
first, that is important. Before going to designing the questionnaire or interview, you just decide decide the statistics you are going to apply. That is very important. Because the data suitable for the ANOVA may be suitable for the factor analysis. Every statistics requires some unique format of the data. Therefore, your data should have such a character. Therefore, after designing the statistics for your research, then you can design your responses. Thank you for your present listening and active involvement of this session. I hope this is a little benefit to you. Okay. With this, I thank the organizers, okay, right from the convener to the executive member of this workshop, and all other resource persons. Okay, we frequently see the notice from this great institutions for conducting this workshops as a faculty development program. This is more useful to the faculty community to make them familiar with some modern tools of the statistics and applications of the statistics through the systems. Okay, with this I thank the organizers, principal, management, and every one of you for this golden opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.